Well, you're probably very hungry, so I'm going to try to feed you with some good information and data. Do I have here? Cool. Let's see. Cool, so a little bit about me. I started making games with Chaos Games, and we try to push this sort of development process and make games faster and faster and faster, and really sort of trying to make MVP games that we tested really early. And after we launched a few games, a bunch of developers started getting in touch and asked me and my team how we got up to the top charts being like such a small studio. And I started out an initiative called Indie Help, where it's basically a bunch of indie game developers from different parts of the world sharing their experience in a Slack channel. And that took us to the next step of going into the infrastructure of analytics, which is SimplAnalytics, and we saw the rise of drag and drop engines and this type of new non-technical game developer that didn't have a chance to implement and work with analytics. So we saw that as an opportunity to help them to implement that and to give them what everyone else had. So today I'm going to talk about analytics in different phases. I'm going to talk about maybe how many guys of you here are making games? So like maybe 50%, and the rest of you are probably in games. And then I'm going to talk about when it's the right time to reach out to a publisher, to give some example emails from Absolute Games, what they want to see, and also give some retention rate and insights from featured indie game developers the last few months. So when we started looking at analytics, we just saw a lot of data, and actually not that much actionable insights that we could do something with. So what we did with one of our first games was that we actually used branched IO and some sort of growth hacking tips where we worked with influencers on a budget of $50 before they got so expensive and everyone else started working with them. So we were able to get about like 5,000–10,000 downloads a day just working with this tiny little budget. But what we saw there was really the power of and the relationship with Apple and Google. And we didn't get that feature that was so important to us and that it is for many other game developers. But after struggling with a lot of data, we broke down the most important parts of it and saw that retention is just what he said before, is really what matters the most. And then if you have good enough retention for the type of game that you want to do, then you can go into look into the onboarding, into the different kind of funnels that you can measure, and you can make more interesting analysis of the data. But to work too much with everything in the beginning would just be time consuming for you. So we saw that really looking on retention in the early phase is a must-have, and it's like taking a shower in the morning. You should really know what you're making and how you can improve it. So how to look at analytics, if you separate it into 4 different phases, is that we have seen that many successful indie game developers are really trying to sort of fix a core gameplay and really push that to make MVP, which is minimum viable products, or MVG, minimum viable games, in a very short amount of time. And then you should only focus on day 1 retention and day 7, maybe day 7, but mostly day 1, because if you have that in place, you will be able to sort of build the scalability of the game later. And once you have that, and once you've set the day 1 retention, you will go into the launch phase, identify your players and markets, see how do retention rate look better in certain markets than others, why do they like the game more than those people, what can I do to maybe localize in that country over that country, just by looking at the simple sort of metric of retention. And then maybe you come into the my game is still alive phase, and then you can improve DAO, MAU, and you can really go into monetize. And after that, it's just a sort of spiral. If you want to make new games and you want to keep down the production time, or if you want to stick with the same game. So I did this little simple metric that it's Harry, who's an indie game developer on Lucky Cat Studios. He talked about this in London, that every indie game developers and small studios should just have a profit and loss, and just like a little sheet to see, to basically analyze themselves and their expectations, and to see if they can come up to those. And so it can be something that you want to set a goal for yourself about not only retention but the expenses of the game, overall revenue, what's your goal ambition with this game, and what's the development type of this game. So we got an introduction before, and probably most of you know it, but what is retention? It's basically the opposite of churn. It's our players coming back. And why it really matters in this sort of really basic sense is that we see that most of the indie game developers and small studios that we are working with, they're monetizing on ads. So if you want to be the strategy and action game and you don't have a good enough day 1 retention, you will never be able to monetize on in-app purchases on day 30 and day 90 and beyond. So it's very important that you really set this sort of fundamental goals for your game to understand like how can you monetize from that. And for example, obviously King, Zynga, Supercell, all the big players, they cannot afford to make the games that live for a week, because they will not be able to spend that money on production. But what you can do as an indie game developer in a small studio is that you have that opportunity to make those kind of games faster and to monetize on day 1 to 7 mainly on ad, and then you can push a new game. It's a strategy that we've seen coming up with from a few successful indie game developers, how they really break down the production time and push more games that are monetizing on day 1 to 7. Because it's hard if you have a really small team to monetize and compete with King and the big guys. So it leads into the question how to improve retention. And it's really hard to improve retention in the sense that you are trying to tweak it to get it like a 50% better, because it's really the fundamentals of the games. Once you've launched it, it will not change. So my one suggestion for this would be to if you're making a game in 2 weeks and you see that the core gameplay is not fun enough, you don't have the stickiness, you will not be able to get day 1 working, scrap the game and work on something new. If you're somehow satisfied with it, then you can improve it, maybe 10%, 20%, but not. It's hard to go more than that. So it's all about making a fun game, and don't fall in love with your game. We've also seen this, that we're trying to build sort of this data-driven community, and we see that there are certain kind of people who really look sort of objective on their game and how they can improve it. And then there's other people who just want to make certain type of games more for themselves than for others. And that's also a thing that you need to decide. So an example is that King, they kill games with less than 25% retention on soft launch, day 1, because it's not worth it. They will not be able to make a better day 1 retention after that. And I think that's probably much higher now. And the benchmarks that we shadowed a little bit with Thomas from King when we launched our first game, and he said that 50% is okay, and that's even higher now too. And for catch-up, it would be really good to have a 10% on day 30. And I think for any small studio, that would be okay for a more casual game. So let's say that you are not getting you're basically praying for that feature as an indie game developer, and you don't have the sort of resources to spend on UA yet. You just want to push games fast, so you're all in the same boat. Then it comes down to building a featured-worthy game, and this is, I think, that many don't think about the whole ecosystem when designing games. That you need to make great content for Apple, but still you need to be aligned with your own sort of value proposition as a developer and who you want to be and the kind of games that you want to do. So these are one of the four most important things when building a feature-worthy game. For specifically, we focus also, as most of our developers got most of their traction from specifically Apple and not over Google. We focus on helping more on that side. So consistency is very important, and it's basically like how how do you see, if Apple looks at you as a developer, what's the LTV for them, for you as a developer? So what's your lifetime value for them? Are you making these type of games that you launch every second year, every third year, or are you making games consistently with a specific theme and a specific gameplay that they really like? It's more worth for them than to push you as a developer. Then there's so many non-serious or less serious developers that it's fine to do as a hobby, but it's hard for Apple to see that you're serious enough and that Apple should help you over others. So, and then obviously, as we all know, design a user experience, make it work for 3-year-olds or your grandmother. That's really great. And it's even when I test games that have been like in production for like 2-3 years, I see like fundamentals of the game that is like still I don't get it. And it's like you should really, you see that as a developer, and sometimes it's just that a little bit of ignorance and too much love to the game, but you should really look through that. And then unique gameplays. Obviously now, as we have a much more saturated market, you need to make, even if it's not a whole new game, you need to tweak stuff so you get to play something new. So basically, reaching out to a publisher. Have you done your research? What does the publisher usually publish? And why will they love your game? And why will Apple love your game? These are the simple questions that sometimes people just forget to think about. And a more important one is like, why will they hate your game? And then just fix it. To see if you have a feature-worthy game. So I talked with David from Absolute Games, and they have the most recurring features on the Best New Game section the past half year, and they're pushing simpler games. And he said that he wants 1 to 2 sentences about the game, why the developer and studios think that the game will be well received. Obviously, if you have traction, that's even better, but for small studios, that's not always the case. And then include a trailer of the gameplay as some of them get 100 games a day. So it can look something like this. Feel free to take a picture. Keep it very concise and short, but also explain why your game is different. Don't send this exact email to David, all of you, because that would be, yeah. So basically, base your ideas on data and not random stuff, if it's emotions or whatever it is. And an example of this, we got curious in the Best New Game section, as that's sort of a really important part of distribution for indie game developers. And we started a Friday experiment called Feature Games I/O. So basically what we did was that, or what I did in the beginning was that I just looked in the App Store on the Best New Game section, and I tried to crawl. We tried to crawl that information, and obviously it's harder to crawl the Best New Game section than the top grossing charts, because that's open through the API. But we thought that we didn't meet anyone who was able to get this information over time. So what we did was that basically just taking it into notes every Thursday, just like taking your shower, and then suddenly, over time, we got this data that we pushed into Apple's API. I don't know if there are some Apple people here, but then please don't tell the other crew at Apple about this. So over time, we then analyzed hundreds of games that have gotten these features on the Best New Game section, and we could see that Apple tend to feature free games as 70% of the features games every week. And then the second most popular pricing is $2.99. And altogether, if you price your game $5.99, $6.99, or $8.99, it's only a 1% chance that your game will be picked. Or only, I don't know also if it's less games that are sent on those pricing tiers. So, but if everything was sort of an equal distribution, that would be the case. So looking into this data over time, we start to see a little bit of trends here. And yeah, I guess I'm confusing it with a Google chart and then like with Apple data, but it's trying to befriend with both. So what you can see the past few months is that action games, they've started to feature more action games, and basically that arcade is and has always been the sort of most popular genre. And then if you look into different genres, there are also probably less games submitted in those genres, but it's good to have in mind that if it's only that amount of games that are featured in that genre, if you have to choose between one genre over the other, you should really consider looking at the data to enhance your possibilities. And to give you some example of these developers, smaller developers that got featured within this time frame on the Best New Game section in the US. I talked about what they learned and also their insights and providing retention to just share with you guys and to help others to also see what to benchmark against. And what I can see as a pattern from smaller indie game developers is that it's really hard to keep up with the retention on day 7 and day 30. Quite many have a sticky game on day 1, but a lot of the effort is to then have some sort of scalability in the game and to think about that quite fast. As you can see, as you have a good retention day 1, then think about how can you take those to the next steps. Let's see, so here are also some more games that all of these have been featured by Apple the past few months. And you can see the same trend here is that it's hard to keep up with day 7 and after that. And then it comes down to maybe not necessarily the stickiness of the gameplay, but the structure of the game. And how can you tweak that also retention with daily bonuses and to build on so that you have something more than just the first time that you play. So I talked with a few of these developers, and the guys who did Chickens said that they see roughly a 5 to 10% drop in day 1 retention during the feature period versus normal operations. So it's also, you need to think through like, okay, what kind of retention do I have when Apple features me in maybe that category over another, and compared to if I do UA myself and if I spend the money myself, do I have a higher retention then, and where should I put my time and resources? And they also said that they were able to improve day 1 retention a lot just by removing all the scalability that people would get in day 7, day 30, and giving all of that on day 1. And I think that's also a thing that sometimes people forget, is that if you don't have your players on day 1, they will be lost. So give them something really good, and then give them something even better as time goes on. And also soft launch your game with real users. It's like showing games to friends and family. They will just be nice to you, and they know that you've had so many noodles and spent 1-2 years on this game, and it would be ruthless to not be nice. So just get in the sort of players that you want then to have in the game and talk with those. And then try to really build and test your core gameplay in 2 weeks or less. That's also what these guys did. And then we have another game called OK Golf. And this is also another case where smaller developers not always expect to get a big feature. So these guys, they never expected to get a big feature as this, and then suddenly they got a lot of reviews and a lot of bugs that they needed to fix. But I would say it's better to be in this situation and improve, and then just ship the version that people love more and more, and at least you see the problems here, than to sit on a game for too long, and then you never get to this good mistake, in a way. And they're actually launching today for Apple TV. So you should all go, if you have your Apple TVs home, you should all go and download these guys' games and try to see if you can maybe break down this and see how you can find that in the game. Oops, I think I maybe skipped one. Nope, I didn't. So looking ahead, once you've built featured-worthy games, how do you build VC-worthy games? And if you're focusing on the type of games that are ad-driven, and so basically you have the retention day 1 to day 7, and then you lose in a lot of players in day 30 to 90, a game will not be enough, and it's maybe if you can push games faster than everyone else, like Ketchup did when they were new, and sort of publishers or studios like that, then you have more than just a game. You have a methodology that you want to push, and that they would maybe be interested in. Otherwise, it's looking on the kind of games that you can get not only ad revenue, but in-app purchases, and work on day 90 and beyond, and make a game that lasts for years and not only a week or two. And I mean, that's quite obvious. So that's it. I think I have 29 seconds, 30 seconds. Oh, I'm over.
You're
so
over.
I have less. Okay, yeah, that's not make it complicated.
Thanks very much. That was really good. And I love the data. The data's always the key. One thing.